As the MLB playoffs continue on without the Philadelphia Phillies, the organization is forced to take a step back and make some difficult decisions about the future of the franchise. While there are plenty of talking points we will get into with each of these players, I do want to dive into the front and center and why Rob Thomson should be fired from his position as manager for this Phillies team. This is a difficult situation that the Phillies really have a hard time on, and I do understand it from all sides of things. There's no doubt that Rob Thomson has not been bad as a manager, that this is something that he has notably taken this team further than something in the Joe Girardi situation, whom he took over. This is not a situation in which we're with pitchforks chasing him out of the city because he failed. But what it is a calculation that if we actually want this team to win a World Series, I'm not confident that Rob Thomson is the guy to take this team over the hump. Now, when you talk about his style as a manager, it's very laid back. It's very trusting. It's very clear that these guys, in general, like playing for him. But what that also doesn't create as an environment within a team is this passion, this will to win. And I do think that that was kind of embraced by this team. I think for every single team, the perfect manager looks a little different. There's not one size fits all for every single roster. The team that would get the most out of this Dodgers team is different than what will get the most out of this Phillies team, and is different than what will get the most out of this Yankees team. That every single team has a little bit different personality and skill set that a manager can bring out the most of. Now, my fear here is that it's likely that Rob Thomson already has brought out the most in this team. And to kind of dive into his record with the team, there's no doubt the success that he's had. That overall, since taking control of the Phillies manager, he's led them to a 250 and 185 overall record and 20 and 14 in the postseason. However, they went to the World Series in 2022, were lost in the NLCS in 2023, and now lost in the NLDS this year. There's no doubt that this team is taking some steps backward, and that does have to be addressed by somebody here. I'm not saying Rob Thomson is the fault of this team for losing this playoff series. In fact, there were things that I was encouraged with. My biggest critique coming off last year's playoff run was his inability to step up and make change happen, to directly try and impact this team. This year, thought he did that a little bit too much. The benching of Alec Boehm, the tinkering with some of the pitching, and kind of the bullpen, the way that he managed things. I don't think it was Rob Thomson's fault that the Phillies lost these playoffs whatsoever. Now, there are people who feel this way, and I did want to pull this up for the sake of conversation here, that we are talking about the 3 seasons in a row in which Rob Thomson has been in charge of this organization. In 2022, pulling Wheeler for Alvarado and then giving up the bomb to Alvarez. Yeah, that hurt a little bit. 2023, leaving Kimbrel in the game and going back to him as he's getting rocked. Yes, everyone knew it was coming. That was a mistake by Thomson. I honestly would push the management of the bullpen and pitching staff is probably my top concern for these first 2 seasons. But then this year, it points to leaving Hoffman in while he had completely lost it. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Rob Thomson should not have left Hoffman back out on that mound. But when he did ultimately make that change to put Carlos Estevez on the bump, we saw what happened from Francisco Lindor. So I understand that there was not a lot of options in the bullpen for him to work to. I don't hold him to that too strong. But this team has to find a way to get better. Now, ultimately, we got to look at the personnel. Rob Thomson didn't take any at-bats to the plate, did not throw any strikes, any balls, or any pitches at all on the mound in these playoffs. It is on the players to perform, and to me, that is the root of the issue. But to make that happen, you have to make sure you have the right man in charge, and I do think that there might need to be a little bit more of a fire lit under this team. I'm not saying we need Dallas Green or a guy that is going kicking and screaming into the locker rooms, throwing chairs, or making things happen, but I do think that sometimes a guy like Rob Thomson, his ability to just be as laid back as he is doesn't always show in the proper ways. Now, there's examples of this working and examples of this not working. Nick Castellanos, a guy that he very clearly stuck with from start to finish this year and was paid the rewards from it. That we did see what a key part of this team that he ultimately grew into. A guy who had a very good year, a walk-off machine that he ultimately proved out to be throughout the playoffs there. He trusted Cassie, let him play through his mistakes throughout his 2 seasons here, and we saw what ultimately came out of that. But there's also situations in which it has not worked. We have not seen the necessary growth from some other names on this list. I think Alec Boehm was a little too late. I think ultimately the punishment coming from the showboating stuff, the frustration, the throw in the helmet, all the childish acts that Boehm has made frequent. Guess what? That didn't just start happening in the playoffs. This has been a significant issue all year, or something that at least has rubbed people the wrong way all year. So why not nip it in the bud several months ago when we're not talking the high pressure of must-win games in the playoffs here? Now, for Thomson specifically, I do have some apathy for him. I just feel kind of bad to the extent I think these have been the best years of his career. He's waited so long to get this manager chance, and he's been pretty open about how much fun he's having. But we also got to ask the question here. You've been a bench coach forever. You've been around baseball your entire life. Why did you never get this management spot? Why was there not a team that wanted to take a chance on you? And I do think for these same reasons that I'm bringing up as far as elevating a team, I don't know if that is in Rob Thomson's bag there. Again, I like the guy. I feel bad. I don't want to kill him. This is not chasing Chip Kelly out or chasing Girardi out or any of these situations. I like the dude, but when looking at this Phillies team in the mirror, they have to act now. Now, there's been a couple quotes that flew around following the year. I did want to highlight this one from JT Realmuto. Was basically asked the same question of, do you still have a belief in this group? And he said, quote, there's still time for this group to get it done, but every time we don't, it hurts a little and stings a little more. There's no doubt that this was a massive missed opportunity, that they were not even able to win a round in the playoffs this year. And we're seeing the Mets and the Dodgers 1-1 in the series right now. Those teams fighting it out. It is frustrating that you can't chalk it up to anything but a missed opportunity for not taking care of business. I do respect the way that this Mets team did compete from start to finish, but the reality is when you go talent for talent, the Phillies just have to be better. Now, when looking at this team as its core and kind of things moving forward, there's still some time here. To pull up the exact years that we're looking at as far as how much time each of these guys will be at the organization, we're talking 1 year guaranteed for JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Strahm, and Alvarado, who have a club option. 2 years for Nick Castellanos and Taijuan Walker, who I can't imagine will be in a Phillies uniform to any extent last year. 3 years for Zack Wheeler, 4 years for Christopher Sanchez, 6 years for Aaron Nola, 7 years for Bryce Harper, and 9 years for Trey Turner there. We'll see about that Turner contract and how that ages, hopefully better than what we're currently seeing now. But really it is these 1 year deals that we're talking most heavily about. JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, those are two foundational pieces of this franchise. So are we talking about a last dance with them, or are we talking about retooling and going up and going out there and winning things? I think to make that happen, there has to be some sort of change. Now, I don't think this is going to happen to any extent. That we do know that ultimately there will be a press conference tomorrow. I will have a ton of quotes to break down on that specifically, but the fact that Rob Thomson has already been announced as being a part of it more or less indicates to me that he absolutely will be a part of this team next year. And again, I do feel bad because there to me is not that certified hold down, this is why it's your fault. It's more about the read of, I'm just not confident this guy is capable of elevating this franchise more than he already has. And to his credit, he absolutely already has. That it was a step forward from taking over when he did step up, but the organization just might have to take one more leap than that. Now, ultimately, as I mentioned, I do think this comes down to talent. And I do think that the players have to play better, and that is the root of things. But I also think there needs to be more talent added to this team. And I think you can't just run it back with this team after they came up so short and we saw kind of the changes there. So taking a peek at the top free agents that are available, there are some notable names. Juan Soto, I spoke plenty about on this channel on the last video here. He's obviously still participating with the Yankees. If they go deep in this playoffs with the Yankees, they win a World Series. If the Yankees win a World Series, I find it hard to believe that Juan Soto would leave. Now, the worst case scenario is if he ends up electing to just leave and go across the city and join the Mets. That would be the worst case scenario. If that were to be the case, you got to look at some other options. Anthony Santander, a really interesting name there, a guy that I'm excited to dig a little deeper in. Teoscar Hernandez, quite a fan of his. Would not mind seeing him in a Phillies uniform whatsoever. Alex Bregman's a kind of an interesting one as maybe a 1 year stopgap between, the end of the Alec Boehm era before we're ready to just fully move on there and turn it over to the young guns here. There's a couple other names to keep an eye on. The first baseman, I don't think are very likely because of course, Bryce Harper holding things down. But ultimately, there's got to be some change here. I'm very excited to see what Rob Thomson and Dave Dombrowski have to say at the podium tomorrow. I do want to hear some fire out of this organization, and I think it will go a lot farther by making the actual change within itself and finding the guy that can truly take this team over the edge and win that desired World Series. So we'll see how things go from here. But I did want to get a pulse from you guys. Are you with me? I ultimately do land on yes, that I think they should move on from Rob Thomson. You can call me out if you think I'm being too soft on him in this video here, as I don't think a lot of it does fall on his shoulders. But sometimes it is not fair. Some of the life situations here that no, it's not your fault, but no, I don't think you can do better, Rob Thomson. So I personally think it would be best served for the organization to move on from it. Want to hear from you guys in the comments. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning into this video here. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and drop a like if you have not already. I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest, breaking down exactly what went down to that podium and what we have to look forward to for this Phillies offseason. Appreciate each one of you guys and talk next time. Peace.